All right, we are live with Adam Davis, one of the new GMs with us, Game Masters at Lurking Fears. We are very, very excited to have him. I'm looking forward to trying Adam Davis with the group and see how things go. It's some of the most exciting times is bringing in a new Game Master and see how they gel and mesh with the other crazies that we have in the group. Adam, welcome.
Well, glad to be here. Thank you again for offering me a seat at your table this year.
Oh, well, more than glad to do it. I mean, that's what we're all about. We are very, very inclusive to our game masters, players. You know, we just want people to come and have a good time. That's really our only requirement is come prepared to have a good time, and we're good to go. so Adam, you are going to be running Dread.
Correct. Yes.
At our con, or at Origins with Lurking Fears. Can you talk a little bit about Dread?
Okay, Dread is a very different sort of RPG for a lot of people who are accustomed to games with a lot of numbers and dice and skill lists and class abilities and so forth. It is a horror game that's meant to emphasize atmosphere, collective storytelling, all of you being part of an ongoing horror story in which your characters are, you know, the protagonists of the horror movie, and there's a realistic chance they're not going to make it out the other side. It's a game in which you do not want to become too terribly attached to your character because not that I'm going to be gunning for you, but the structure of the game makes it such that you've got a decent chance of not making it out at the end, depending on how things run. But in a lot of ways, part of the fun of Dread is what happens when that occurs. So.
Absolutely, yeah. Dread is a very, very tense game. With the mechanic that's in the game. Again, there's no dice. There's barely character sheet. If I remember, it's more like a suggestion.
Yeah, basically, you've got a character sheet. That your character sheet consists of your answers to 13 questions, some of which will be loaded questions. Mm-hmm. All of your characters are going to be at some level or another morally ambiguous people. There's usually a skeleton or two in your closet in your character sheet somewhere, or some fears or unresolved issues from your past that will get folded into the ongoing story. No dice, no numbers, no rolling. All conflict is resolved by pulling blocks out of a Jenga tower.
That's the tense element that's definitely locked into the game. So if you pull the brick successfully, you succeed in your task. If the tower fails,
it's a horror game.
Yeah, you're done.
Yeah. No, that does not mean you're going to die. You know, you could go mad, fall into a pit to hell. You know, there are a lot of terrible things that could happen to you. But
they're much worse fates than death.
But if the tower goes down, your character is marked for doom one way or the other. Usually you're going to die right away, but depending on what's going on in the story at the moment, you might be a dead man walking, you know, and your doom is foreordained, but you might be able to keep on playing for a little bit after that.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah. See, I played it like a handful of times, and I was very, very enthralled with it. Every time I played it, it's a fun game. That again, it is very tense. It has a really good tension built into the game already. It's very role play oriented. I think.
Absolutely. Like this is, again, you have no numbers, you got no experience points or anything like that. It's built for one shots. You could technically run campaigns with it, but that gets a little odd.
I can imagine. Yeah.
So really, it's all about the storytelling, and it's about maintaining an atmosphere. It's about being willing to put yourself in the headspace of that character and make the horror movie decisions and confront things through that lens. And the tower just makes kind of a symbol of all that tension, because the further into the story you go, the more the physical tower itself gets rickety, and you begin looking at it and really making hard choices about, is this worth risking my skin for to make this pull? Or is this something maybe I'm going to let the guy next to me open that door, or is this the moment whenever you say, okay, I'm going to give it my all and make the heroic sacrifice and jump on the grenade for my friends,
Yeah. I've seen that too. Like basically, if you intentionally crash the tower, like you succeed but die. Is that correct?
That's basically, that's your heroic sacrifice moment. Anybody can push over the tower, and you will succeed at what you were trying to do, and your friends will hopefully remember you fondly.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so so Tell us. I mean, do you normally just do drag? Give us a little bit of your game master history. What were you brought up on as a game master?
I like to say I'm classically trained. I had my beginning with first edition Dungeons Dragons. I've
Hmm.
played through every edition of D&D. I've played World of Darkness, Changeling, Dreaming, Mage the Ascension were my favorites. I have played Fate System games. I've run Dresden Files and Fate System, which I've had a lot of fun with. Really fun universe. If you don't know the works of Jim Butcher, you know that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And yeah, it's a really nice adaptation of Fate System for that. These days, what I mostly run is D&D 5e. I've got my own homebrew campaign worlds that I've literally been running since I was in middle school, so those worlds are 25 years old at this point, you know. I've got a couple D&D campaigns I run. I run Dread games whenever I write a new scenario because you don't really have Dread campaigns. I have an on-again, off-again Fate System game. So I do a fair bit of gaming. I don't play much. I'm mostly GMing. I'm not at the PC side of the table all that often. But I have friends that I do an Indie Friday game nights with. We try out a lot of different systems. But me as a GM, D&D has been my bread and butter for a long time. But Dread is my favorite system. I adore the emotional energy that you get in it, which you just don't get in most games. And I think that taking the focus off the mechanics is really important for that. My D&D games, even we go entire sessions without anybody rolling dice because I run a very role-playing intensive D&D game too. So
one of the games I just ran last weekend, it was the Call of Cthulhu game, but I didn't give them their character sheets till about halfway through the game.
Oh, interesting.
All of the characters had amnesia.
Okay.
So all they had was like these ID badges that had like their picture and their first name. That's all they had to go on.
Gotcha.
And as they were trying to do stuff, I would be like, just roll me percentile die. And they're like, well, what am I rolling? It's like, you don't know. You don't know how strong you are or how smart you are, you know. So that was fun until they started piecing things together.
Right.
So yeah, throwing them right into the thick of it, just like you would with Dread, and getting that immediate, you know, putting them in the action kind of a deal is very fun.
Depends on the Dread game. Sometimes I like to put people right in the middle of the action from the word go. Other times it's nice to have a slow build to the horror where things look normal and people who are characters who may not even be aware of the supernatural going in are thinking they're doing something completely regular, and then all of a sudden things begin to happen. You know, and both of those approaches have their merits. So
absolutely. Now the thing I like about like the players we tend to draw with Lurking Fears, we love having players to have that ability to be able to just throw themselves in a role.
Yeah.
And not everybody can do that. You know, like one slot you're like a grizzled World War II veteran, and then the next game you're playing an 8-year-old girl with a broken dolly.
Right.
You know,
it's a little bit of mood whiplash.
Yeah, and to give credit to the players for being able to throw themselves in that role and make the best of the game, because it is up to, I think it's definitely pass fail on whether the players buy in and go with the game.
And really, being a horror PC is as hard a job as being a horror GM, because playing in horror means doing things that we as role players are not accustomed to. When you're doing your typical swords and sorcery Dungeons and Dragons game, you know, or whatever, fear is a mechanic that sometimes a dragon or a vampire uses on you, you know. In a horror game, you as a player have to be willing to let yourself feel the fear, to embrace the fact that your character is confronting things that to any real person would be horrific, would be terrifying, would leave them out of their depth. And so I feel like you need the buy-in. You need to be willing to say, okay, I'm going to accept to suspend my disbelief and immerse myself in that mindset of I'm confronting things humans were not meant to know for a little while here. And at the same time, you also have to be willing to say, okay, sometimes a good horror story means the good guys don't make it out. And that's also 100%. Really hard for your average role player to do when they're accustomed to trying to keep their character alive, you know?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times where I've had to tell a newer player, you know, running away is a completely viable option.
Yep.
running and leaving the others to die is a completely viable option.
But I found that Dread is a game that, again, I think taking this focus off the mechanics and making it more story sort of encourages that mindset. I found that people playing this game tend to really get into it after a while. They they kind of sink into the story, and the tower just comes to be a symbol of all the tension, and everybody's energy goes into that. And in that moment, it becomes easier for you. It's one thing to roll a die and say, man, I hope I roll the high roll. It's another thing to look at that tower and be like, okay, we're all going to die unless I either make that really crazy pull or unless I just bite the bullet and shove it over, you know?
Yeah.
When people start making those kind of decisions in this game, people you wouldn't expect will make those kind of decisions. And I love that about it.
Yeah, that sacrifice, because they get invested in the character quick.
Yeah.
You know, so it is a hard decision. It's like, it's not like you're going to come right back in with another PC. It's you're basically watching the story from that point on.
Right. And sometimes there are ways to keep a quote unquote dead player involved, but you know, for the most part, you got to be ready for dread to be that you're going to not necessarily make it out the other end. And it's really not going to be pretty. And that might mean also that you do the horror thing where you try your best and you fail anyway and the monster gets you, you know.
It's that's the way it is. Yeah, right. It wouldn't be horror if they didn't. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you didn't have that, this could happen. Exactly. Awesome. So we talked a bit about dread, you know, and your background. Tell me what like a player would expect, you know, not to just come to a dread game, but to come at your table. How are you as like a game master specifically, not just specifically with dread, but any game that a player might come and sit at your table?
Okay, I really like to build an atmosphere in my games. I do a lot of research going in. Most of my dread scenarios are based in real world folklore, mythology, or history, or things like that. I'm working on one right now. I guess a little teaser for anybody who's going to be at Origins this time. I'm currently writing a brand new dread scenario involving Victorian occultism in the 1890s. And I've been doing a deep dive into what that was actually like and trying to pull as much verisimilitude in as I can. I like a story in which people have to make morally ambiguous choices. I like building my players. I like to say that every one of my dread questionnaires has the can I curse here?
Oh yeah. That's fine.
I like to say that every one of my dread questionnaires has the oh shit question in it, where you're building your character and suddenly you see that question on the page and you're like, oh wait.
Yeah.
And I always tell my players up front when you're filling out that questionnaire, like, hey, the questionnaire is not going to lie to you. If it asks the question, what are you addicted to? The answer is not, I don't do drugs, you know, and
there's something. Yeah.
And I like building a story in which characters are whole people, you know, not just, you know, like a collection of stats and numbers. People sitting down to my table need to be able to engage like people. You know, you need to be able to forget you're in a game for a little while and try to think like the person who you're being, whether that's a D&D game or whether that's a dread game or whatever, you know. I like a story that makes people think things through. I like a story that makes people, again, have to make hard choices. I like a story where you can't just solve the problems by bashing them with a sword or casting a fireball. You know, that things are going to be more complicated than that, and actions are going to have consequences.
Absolutely. And that's, you know, one of the reasons, the things when you came up and like, hey, I would like to run some dread. I'm like, that is a fantastic game that people who have played dread will run to a dread table that love to play dread. They will, you know, I've seen people like knocking each other out of the way trying to get to the table. We
actually at Windmill Game, we normally have a queue. You know, that we have people if you're not ticketed, we have you sign in when you get there. So we have the order of when people arrived, so we can fill seats at, you know, unfilled games. You know, we always have more people than we have chairs to fill. It's a super popular system.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those games that people, you know, when they know about it, they love it, and they bring other people in, which is also great because they get to experience it, and then it's all new for them. So they're very excited about it. So can we talk a little bit about Windmill Games, or?
Oh, sure. But yeah, it's Windmill Game Company is the official name, not Windmill Games. We're a small press game company. I've been writing with them for 6-ish, 7-ish years now. I can't remember exactly when I started, but we have very bipolar sort of games that we do. On the one hand, maybe you've walked past our table at Origins at some point when we were doing ADG NEP SEF 555. It's our anime grade school game. Where basically we have stock characters that people who've been playing with us for a while know the characters by now, and they'll come and play their favorite or whatever. And it's basically, grade school kids in the grade school at the center of the multiverse. The characters are all shameless ripoffs of, anime stereotypes or anime characters. You've got your Sailor Scout type character, your Monster Trainer type character, that sort of thing. And those sessions are complete and utter mayhem. We hand out candy as in-game currency and as experience points, actual candy. We don't really go in with too much of a plot because the players mostly create the plot as they go. And it's a game that you can easily play and enjoy whether you are 6 years old or 60 years old, because
Awesome.
the more absurd things you come up with, the better, which means the things that a 6-year-old comes up with fit perfectly well. And then that's the kind of the TV YA tier of the golden hour system, that going up there. We have Tokyo Masks, which is our Sentai superhero game. We've got Unhappily Ever After, which we haven't run quite as often. It's our Dark Fairy Tales game. We've got Wuxia, which is our Flying Man Kung Fu game. All of that's kind of the middle tier, and then it's not using the golden hour system, but Dread is kind of our dark crown jewel, if you will, the thing we run after hours, because it's an 18+ game. And we've been doing this for a while now. We only just recently started a Patreon. So if anybody likes what we do, Windmill Game Company, our Patreon is open and accepting people. We're putting out some exclusive content through that. We've got some really cool new things in the works. We're working on some new systems that I can't really talk about just yet because we haven't made an official announcement, but we're going to be adding a new game or two to our stables that I think people who are anime fans in particular are going to really like some of the new things we're working on. We're, of course, always, adding to our existing stuff. We've got several very fine Dread GMs who write good scenarios, and we try to offer something novel for every year's convention. And we're starting to, in our Patreon, we're starting to offer some of our scenarios as write-ups that you can run at home, if you like that sort of thing. But yeah, like we're a company that really believes in, diversity is super important. We want everybody to have a place at our tables. We are all 100% about punching Nazis. We are in favor of just having anybody be there who can be themselves and have a good time with our games and let your imagination run wild, whether it's running wild into dark corners of the fairy realms or whether it's running wild into getting into your time machine that you build at your desk at school and teleporting to the dinosaur era.
There you go. I love that. That is awesome. Yeah, it seems like Lurking Fears and your game group is a good fit because we feel the same way. We just want people to come and have a good time at the table.
Absolutely. We think of our players, our regular players, they're our family. Like we love seeing the same people come to our tables again and again, year after year. But we also love when they bring their friends and their relatives, and we get the new people coming in, and it makes us happy to know that we've become a part of so many people's convention experience. I'm going to be the only one representing Windmill as such this year. And again, I'm really grateful that you're letting me do that with your group, because I'm super happy to be able to, keep on doing what we do.
More than happy to do it. We're very thrilled to have your game company, and especially Dread part of the group, and be able to have them with us and run some great games and scare the crap out of people. That's always the fun part, right?
It is, and I feel privileged to be working with such a great group. So
thank you. We're definitely going to put your Patreon in the description. That's okay. I'll have you copy me the Patreon. We'll definitely set that up in the video. Excellent. Is there anything you would like to say as we end up this interview, or
to our players coming in or whatever?
Yeah, or anybody just watching the video about you. Yeah.
If you want to have a good time and don't care if your character dies, I would love to have you at my table. If you like the idea of some palpable tension and you have a steady hand, you're certainly welcome there. Also, if you don't have a steady hand, again, we are welcoming everybody who's there. You can designate somebody else to pull for you.
I didn't know that. You can do a designated hitter? I did not know that.
As long as you're okay with, putting your life in somebody else's hands. We want people to be able to play even if they would have something physically prevented them from keeping a steady hand or whatever.
Got it. Or just generally got the shakes, I imagine. Yeah.
I mean, now if you get the shakes because you're nervous, sorry, that's on you. You should be nervous. That's what we're doing.
Of course, yeah.
But if you have a disability that's enabling, making it harder for you to do that, then we will absolutely designate you having somebody to pull for you. So even if that's a thing that the game sounds cool to you, but you're worried about the physicality of it, we will make it happen for you. Again, as long as you
Outstanding.
don't mind putting your life in the hand of that guy sitting next to you. That you
Of
just
course. Of course.
But yeah, I'd love to see some new folks at my tables. I'd like to see some old friends come to see me there. And I'm super excited to actually be back at Origins after so long.
Excellent. Again, we're glad to have you, and I think we're going to have a great time together at Origins. I think we're, it's going to be a smaller con definitely this year, much more personal con
Yeah,
for
I think
people.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think it's just going to give everybody a chance to get closer with each other, be able to spend more time to know more about each other, which making the best out of a situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Well, I think that's all we'll do. We'll close that for now. And Adam, again, thank you so much for being with us, doing our interview with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, and I really appreciate the opportunity to, get to do this.